If you've been active in the Nintendo community lately, you've probably seen a lot of people complain about the Mario 3D All-Stars collection that Nintendo recently announced. But of course, for as many critics as there are about the game, there seem to be just as many who are ready to defend the Big N. So today, let's take a look at both sides of this controversy and see if we can't come to a conclusion. Hey there, I'm Carno. When I first found out about this collection, I was pretty pumped despite my issues I had with it. Over the past few days though, I've become a lot more torn on the subject and I can really see both sides of the discussion. But anyway, without wasting any more time, let's get into the first argument. Number 1. Nintendo made the collection too expensive. More specifically, $60 is too much for even 3 games that are over a decade old. The Defenders' response? Despite their age, all of these are great Mario games. No matter how old they are, they're still classics, and what's more, putting them together justifies the price even more. After all, you're getting 3 critically acclaimed games in one package. So, what do I think about this? Well, here's what I did. I looked up the MSRP for each game when it was on the Wii U Virtual Console. Mario 64 was $10, Mario Galaxy was $20, and Mario Sunshine was not available because Nintendo apparently hates the GameCube. But seeing as these 2 other games sandwich it, let's say it would be $15. Adding that up, that's about $45 value for the base games alone. However, we also have to consider that these games are all upscaled in HD quality. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't consider this that big of a deal. If anything, it's the bare minimum from what one would expect. So really, I'd say this collection would probably be totaled at only about $50. They include a music player, but to be honest, I really consider that more of a neat bonus that doesn't really add much monetary value. Really though, I think in the grand scheme of things, this is far from the worst pricing Nintendo's done for the Switch. I mean, who could forget that time they charged full price for a game previously valued at $20? Anyway, before I get too sidetracked, let's move on to the next argument. Number 2. Nintendo didn't do enough to the collection. They should have remade the games from the ground up in order to more properly reflect the current generation. By not doing so, they're soiling the meaning of the All-Stars name. The counterargument? Nintendo was under no obligation to do such a thing, and everyone who was disappointed was getting their hopes up too high from the leaks. In fact, we should be grateful Nintendo is releasing this at all. So what's my conclusion? Well, to be honest, I would have really loved ground-up remakes of these games, especially in the case of Mario 64. I think it would have been great to see it brought into the modern era with multiplayer and maybe even the content from the DS port. Maybe they could have made some changes to Sunshine, and don't even get me started on a Galaxy remake. But all that being said, I'm gonna have to agree with the Defenders here. I think that without the leaks, people's reception would have been a lot warmer, especially if they'd announced this earlier in the year. And really, it's unfair to criticize Nintendo for doing something they never even promised to do. Oh, and about the All-Stars name being soiled by mere ports, there was literally only one game with that title, and it was released for the SNES over 20 years ago, so I'm not really sure how well that argument holds up. Again, I would love it if they offered remakes, and to be honest, I am disappointed that that isn't the case. But in the end, I can't exactly blame this game for that. Okay, next argument. Number 3. Nintendo's being anti-consumer by making this game only available until March 31st. If people aren't able to pick it up, especially because of the current world situation, then they are unfairly barred from enjoying this game. The other side says that it's Nintendo's game on Nintendo's console, and strictly by that rule, Nintendo can do whatever they want. End of story. Besides, they probably will release these games in some other form later down the line, so people aren't really missing out. I'm not even going to pretend to beat around the bush here. I am firmly on the side of the critics. Yes, Nintendo does own this game and has the right to do whatever they want. However, that still doesn't mean that making an artificially rare item paints them in a very positive light for consumers, especially when it comes to the digital release. If Nintendo had just made the physical copy limited, I could understand that. However, I just don't see any reason for them to do this on the eShop too, other than they either want to boost sales or they're just pulling a Nintendo move. neither of which I would honestly put past them. And to the point that they'll probably just release the games separately later, Nintendo has not announced any such plan, and until the point where they do, we must assume that they won't, at least for the sake of argument. So for the time being, I'm sticking to my point. So anyway, what do I think about this as a whole? I think the product itself is pretty cool, maybe slightly overpriced, but nothing too offensive. The distribution method though, not so good. Even if they had innocent intentions, it's certainly not coming off that way. But anyway, let me know which side you're taking in this debate, and let's start a conversation. In the meantime though, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.